All right, we're gonna make a puzzle cube. We're gonna use this as our prototype. So we're gonna start with this and we're gonna make these pieces. We're going to join them together and then we will uh, put them in a 3D print file. So this is kind of our goal today. So we'll kind of flip back and forth between each of these parts. But first thing we want to do is we want to create a folder. So we're going to create a folder called Puzzle Cube. And then inside of that folder, we're then going to save our file as Puzzle Cube 2025. And then we're going to right click and do a new component. We should always create components within our system. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to start with this piece. This is the easiest. We're going to use these as 1/2 inch spacers when we do this. So it doesn't matter which plane you work off of. And again, I'm just going to put in some rectangles and one in between. So this can be 1.5. This can be 0.5. And then I can use the equals constraint to pretty much do the rest of these. So we're going to equals constraint there, equal constraint there, equal there, equal here. Do a collinear to make these two collinear. And then I can dimension this from here to here and say that that's also 0.5. Again, we want to have all of our sketches, all of our lines turned black to show that it's fully constrained. And then we're going to extrude this 0.5. And now this is the first part that we have. All right, so there's our first component. We could call this red part, and then we'll make it red here in a minute. Right click on your main name of your file, and then we're going to do a new component. And we're going to say okay. And we're going to turn off the red part as we make this new one. And we're going to look at our designs here. I'm going to go ahead and make this one second. This is the next easiest part. So there it is. So again, there are some different ways to do this. We'll show you those later as you get more experience, but you can actually build off of other parts and use them as references, but I'm not going to do that today. And then again, I'm using that equals constraint to my advantage here. So I don't need to dimension. And if we look, so I just did kind of the base of that, and I'm going to extrude that square upward. So I'll do a new sketch on the top surface here. Go rectangle from that midpoint to here. Don't even have to dimension any of that. E for extrude, 0.5, and there's our second piece. We'll call this one blue part. Right click new component. Say okay. Turn off your blue part. New sketch. Let's see what we're doing this time. So this time these two are done. We'll do this guy right here. So it looks like a U shape to start with, and then a couple of blocks extending up. So draw that. R for rectangle. It's good to learn your hotkeys. I mean, you could put in 0.5 and 0.5 on this. You could dimension as you go, which is not a bad idea. So again, I just hit 1, then tab 0.5. You know, so you could dimension as you go, and that's, like I said, it's not a bad play to do that. Again, everything is black. That's your goal. 0.5 for this. Do a new sketch on the surface. Again, a rectangle. We're going to go from here to here. And then this one goes from here to here. And we just want to say that these are collinear. Or you could do equals constraint. You could say this is equal to this, and that squares that up. Again, we're going to extrude these, pull this out 0.5. Now, notice, this is what a lot of students mess up on. See how it's got a line there? This should be one solid part, but it actually pulled those as two separate parts. So a lot of times it'll default to new body. You just need to make sure it says join and then say, okay, so now that line is gone and it's one solid part. It does that when you have this infinitely thin wall of connection, this edge between these two parts. So Fusion doesn't like this very well, so it thinks you're trying to make separate parts because it doesn't really see that as a connection point. So there's nothing, it's like, well, do you want to join those or not join those? So we join them and then it becomes this. So that's good. There's our third component. We'll call this orange. And we're going to do one more component. And this puzzle cube has 4 pieces. So again, depending on the year, I change it between 4 and 5 if it's an honors class or if it's a non-honors class, similar types of things. So this has that same kind of U-shaped base. It's got one that sticks out the front, and then it's got this rectangle that's out the back here. So I'm going to start with the U and then build off of there. So same thing, go to home. We'll start on this face. Again, we'll start with our rectangle, 1.5. We'll do another one here, 0.5, 0.5. And then we'll do another rectangle here, 1. So that's actually pretty slick to do that. Just put in your dimensions as you go. We're going to extrude this 0.5. We're going to create a new sketch on this front surface. We're going to do a rectangle from this corner to this corner, automatically dimension. 0.5 on that extrusion. So now you can see kind of where we're at. That did join, so there's no line there. I'm going to go around the back side and I'm going to put a sketch here. And this time I'm going to do a rectangle from here that's 1 inch by 0.5. So again, I dimensioned it right as I made it. And then I'm going to extrude this thing back 0.5. Again, making sure it's joining. And there's our last part. And we're going to make this, let's call this purple. All right, so now we have all 4 of our pieces. We can turn them on now. And activate this. You can see they're all just kind of laid on top of each other. We got our 4 pieces ready to go, 4 components. And now we're ready to join them together. I'm going to first change their color, so it's a little bit easier to see them when I'm joining. So to do that, you can right click on the main name, go to appearance, and then I'm going to go into paint, and then there's a glossy, and I'm going to pull the part or the paint colors that I want up here. Now you're going to notice that I don't have a purple and I don't have an orange in this. So if you right click and duplicate it and right click and edit, now it's not on the screen, but I'll show you a screenshot of what this looks like because it's on my second screen, so it's kind of hard to see, but this is what you will see pop up as a window on your screen. It looks like this. So you're going to change the name, and then you can use the slider to get it into a position to change the color. So off camera, that's what's going on here. So over here, I'm changing the name from red 1 to orange. And then I'm going to use my slider bar. And then I'm going to move my tab and say done. And now you're going to see that this turns orange. So this part right here is blue. Don't want to just select the face, I want the whole thing. And then this part right here is red. Why it's doing that. So click, go to appearance, drag my red onto the red, my orange part, is here. Drag the orange to there. And then the last one is purple. Same thing. I know I have a purple, so I'm going to duplicate this, edit it, change the name to purple. Use my little slider. Grab a purple. That's how you color your parts, just like that. If you don't like the color blue, you can always go back into the appearance. Ah, that's too dark of a blue. I can just edit this blue and lighten it up. Say done. And now we have a lighter kind of periwinkle blue there instead. So those are options you have for that. Now we're ready to do our assembly. So how do we assemble this? Well, I kind of forget how to put my puzzle cube back together. So this is going to be interesting. I'm going to do this off camera, and then we'll see if we can get this back to, let's see, can we figure this out in a short amount of time? Probably not. So give me a minute off camera. Let me get this back together, and then we'll come back and talk about how we assemble. All right, we're back. Only took me 3 hours. No, I'm kidding. It wasn't that long. But here we go. So here's our part, our cube. This is what it's going to look like assembled. So I'm going to take the first two parts, which are these two here. And then I want to think about, okay, how do those attach? What corner points are touching? So for me, I'm going to look at like these outer corners here. You could do these corners, you could do any corner intersection, or you could really look at like faces, like the center of this face and the center of this face, and those are touching. So you could do centers or you could do corners. I'm going to show you both ways to do this, but those two go together just like that. Okay, so you can kind of see this piece right here and that H piece right there. So I'm going to first do edges and then I'll do corners. So it's these two pieces here, and this piece goes inside of this piece, and this rectangle side over here is going to be on this side this way. So this is going to be faced up outward up here at the top. So what that means is this corner right here is touching this corner right here. These two are my two corner points that I'm considering. So when I go to joint, I'm going to make sure that I'm in a rigid joint for motion. And then I'm going to select this front face. So I'm hovering over it and I hold down the control key. So on my keyboard, I'm holding down control. And what that does is it locks the face. So if I don't, anytime I move, it goes to another face. But if you hold down control, even if I'm over here, it still keeps it locked on this face. So I'm going to say this. And then I'm going to go up to this. And now what it wants to do is do what's called a mate, which is going to make these two pieces kiss. So you can see that they are now kissing. So the two circles are now touching and are mated together. We don't want that. We want them to be flush. So we're going to hit the flip button. And then once we flip it, you can see that now that corner right there and this corner on the same plane, we just need to rotate this into position. So we can use our little rotate tool here and we can rotate those together. And now they're in the correct orientation that we want. If you mess up, you can always hit the X bars or just hit cancel and it will put them back to where they were. And you can just start over. So you're like, okay, what if I want to do like this face touching or kissing this face? So you could do that. Say the center of this face is touching the center of this face. Boom, but you just rotate it into position and now it's where it should be. So again, if we look at this part right here, you can see here's our H. Here's this piece with the rectangle on the side. It's got the little nub on the side, and they're touching where the middle of this face is touching the middle of that face, and they come together. And that's good. Like that's all we need to do. There's a lot of different ways that we can joint them together. We just say, okay. And now we have the purple part anchored to the red part. Great. We can actually do what's called, I think we can pin this. and now it won't move. So everything will move toward this. So that's kind of our anchored parent part. And then everything is going to move toward it. Okay. So what piece comes next? It's kind of the next question. So I'm going to take this piece right here, and then I'm going to place it into this position right here. So again, a lot of options here on what we could do. So we could say this face is touching this face so that you can see right there. We could say these two corners are touching. We could say the middle of this face is touching the middle of that face when they come together. So you got some options. I'm going to do this face and that face, the middles of those kind of coming together like this. So I need to think about how this orange piece is oriented when I do that. It's going to be oriented like this. We're talking about this face. I take that back. We're not talking about that. We're talking about this face right here is the one we're looking at. And that is going to be touching this face right here on this piece. So when I do my joint, go to this, middle of this face is touching the middle of this face. And then you're going to have to rotate it. And you're like, okay, is it like this? Or is it like this? Well, it's like this. Okay, this is how those two get together. And I say, okay. And now we can see that that orange piece is now in position. And then finally, we're going to do our last piece. And this one's the easiest because you can see that it literally is just going to drop down right into this place right there. So probably the easiest face would be that mated to that. Now, here's the only issue is when I do that, when I create a joint, it's saying, okay, pick this face here, but then there's no middle point on this face. You see that? Because it's a whole rectangle and it's an entire piece. The midpoint of the face is down in here. So how do we get it to the midpoint of this? Well, we really can't. So we're just going to have to do a corner of one of these instead. So I'm just going to check off my X. I'm going to go to this corner. So again, I hold down Control and select this outer corner. And that's going to then go to this outer corner and lock right into there. Don't have to rotate that one at all. And there's my parts. So once you have your finished cube like this, you're now ready to do all your drawing files. So there are videos of that. We've discussed that in class. I might make another one, but this is more to how do we get it to 3D print. So I'll make separate videos of those. But that's how you get your cube together. Once you're to this spot, you're in a good place to move forward.